Hello everybody, I welcome you all in this new edition of news coverage and analysis from the Hindu newspaper dated 13th March 2019. So what all are we going to cover is detailed here in this page. You can pause the video and note down if you wish. In the explaining, we would be discussing two important things. First is National Register of Citizen and second Official Secret Act. So let's start with the first article, and that says no names removed based on the draft NRC. This is what Election Commission has said to the Supreme Court. The Election Commission of India on Tuesday assured Supreme Court that names has not been deleted from the Assam electoral roll on the basis of their exclusion from the draft National Register of Citizen, that is NRC, which was published in July last year. Now, very important and pertinent question that is asked by the Chief Justice of India. He asked, but a question looms large in the light of the preparation of the final NRC to be published in July 31st, 2019, that is coming July. What would happen to those who do not appear there but are included in the electoral roll? Now let's try to understand the importance of this particular question. Now say in a particular constituency, if these people are allowed to vote, they vote, and later on after thorough examination it turns out that these are actually foreigners and they have major role in the result of that particular constituency. So what would be done with that result? Should government go for re-election? So this is quite a pertinent question that Supreme Court has asked. Now let's see what happens. Now the contentious categories of people in NRC are: first category included a person whose names figure in the draft NRC, that means they are considered to be the citizen but not in the voter list. So the point is how their names are not there. Now in the second category, person whose names were deleted from the voter list, that means they were considered to be the foreigner but appeared in the draft NRC. So how did they come in the draft NRC list? That is the question that should be answered. The petition claimed that these people had voted in the last Lok Sabha election also. So we need to streamline things. There were people whose names were not included in the complete draft NRC, but they subsequently filed a claim for their inclusion. So there are people who are left out, but then they are saying that they have got sufficient document and they had voted in the earlier Lok Sabha election and were waiting for the inclusion of their names. Then there is a third category of the people who were those declared foreigner by the Foreigners Tribunal as well as by the Guwahati High Court. So there is a substantial dispute there, but the court order was stayed by the Supreme Court. So what would happen to this kind of people? Then there is a fourth category comprises of those already declared foreigner by the tribunal, and this was set aside by the Supreme Court. So what would happen to these people? Now, however, their names had been deleted from the voter list pursuant to the order of the tribunal. Now they are not there, these people. So what is going to be their fate? Now in the fifth category were those whose names had not been included in the draft NRC but their family members were included, and these had filed claims for the inclusion of their names. So these are the different categories about which the Election Commission has said that names has not been deleted, and whatever name is there is there. If their name is not in the voter list, they are not going to touch it. So these five category of people are going to play a crucial role. And what would happen to the fate of that constituency's result after the election if any changes happens in NRC, final NRC? Well, now that we are talking about NRC, let's try to understand what is NRC. National Register of Citizen 1951 is a register prepared after the conduct of the census of 1951 in respect to each village, showing the houses, the holding in the serial order, and indicating against each houses or holding the number and the names of the person staying therein. Well, now why National Register of Citizen is being updated in Assam? That is the first question that everybody's that would come in everybody's mind. Now Assam's tryst with migration goes back as early as 20th century. According to the white paper on foreigners issue released by the Assamese government on October 2012, the conquest of Assam by the British in 1826 created a large number of petty jobs. I mean, jobs related to clerks. I mean, jobs related to administration, because British government needed people who could help them run their system. As the British expanded their base in Assam, these positions were filled by hiring educated Bengali clerks who were tasked with the upkeep of the empire. And then came the second wave. Around the same time, discovery of tea in Assam, followed by its growing cultivation, required a large number of low-cost workers. And this the British ensured by bringing the tribals from Bihar, Odisha, Chota Nagpur, Central and United Province. The British wanted to set up agriculture in Assam and readily handed over permits to settlers, even gave tax holidays of 2 or 3 years. And this definitely led to influx of migrants from East Bengal, a region with a predominantly Muslim population of Bengali origin. Now, further, the episodes of mass migration were witnessed in Assam during partition and finally during Bangladesh War of Liberation in 1971. It is reported that nearly 10 million people migrated from East Bengal to India during this period, and this is the basic contentious point. Now, National Register of Citizen updation basically means the process of enlisting the names of those people whose names appear in any of the electoral roll up to 1971 or 1951 NRC or any of the admissible document stipulated, that is prescribed by the commission. Now, the demand to update the NRC of 1951 was first raised by All Assam Students Union (ASU) and Assam Gan Parishad more than 3 decades ago, around 1980. The organization had submitted a memorandum to Center on January 18th, 1980, 2 months after the launching of the anti-illegal foreigner Assam movement. On November 1999, at the official level tripartite meeting between government, ASU and Assam Gan Parishad, to review the implementation of the Assam Accord, a decision was taken that NRC would be updated, and the center sanctioned rupees 20 lakh, and then there are certain data that is not that important here. How will it impact the illegal immigrants? I mean, based on the Assam Accord. The Assam Accord was signed between the leaders of ASU and Assam Gan Parishad and the Government of India in 1985, making an end to 6-year long agitation. The parties agreed that all foreigners who had entered Assam between 1951 and 61 would be given full citizenship. However, those entered the state after 1971 would be deported, and there is a date of 24th of March. That date is taken as 24th March because 24th March is the date on which Pakistan started their assault on Bangladeshi Muslim, I mean in Bangladesh, and people started fleeing and mass migration started happening. So that's why that date is chosen, 25th of March. So this is the point. Now point is, would Bangladesh take them back? Do they consider or do they acknowledge that there was a mass migration? Well, that is the real headache of the government. Now we move to the next article, that is 10% quota, a step towards casteless society. Now there is a case in Supreme Court, you all are aware, and yesterday I had covered an article in which bench of Supreme Court had said that it may consider sending the case to the constitutional bench, and the decision would be taken on that issue on 28th of March. So how government has responded yesterday, that is detailed here in this article, and this is an interesting read because this would give you an insight as how government is approaching this case. I mean, there is a debate whether this is going to this is hurting the basic structure of constitution or not, and if it is, how government is going to tackle it. Because if government has taken a step, And you know that in 1992 government had tried to bring in this kind of reservation quota, and it was struck down by the government court, Supreme Court at that point of time. So how government is approaching this time, how the approach is different. So we need to understand how government is responding to Supreme Court. Let's try to see. The center referred to the court's past decision that called for the attainment of economic equality as the final and only solution to the besetting problems of the country. So this is what government has resorted to. It has actually cited Supreme Court's own dialogue that attainment of economic equality is the final and only solution of solving all kind of problem of this country. So thus the Constitution 103rd Amendment Act 2019 was meant to benefit the economically weaker section of the society who are not covered by existing scheme of reservation. So by doing this, government is saying that it is basically trying to fulfill what Supreme Court has been suggesting, that solution to all the problem is to attain economic equality. And how can economic equality be brought in when economically weaker section are also given reservation? Now what is the argument that is given? Government argued that mere amendment to an article would not violate the basic structure of the Constitution. And this is quite an interesting point. Let's try to understand what government is saying. Government is saying Article 15.6 and 16.6 are enabling provision for advancement of the economically weaker section and are in fact in conformity with the principle of reservation and affirmative action. Furthermore, it is saying that the 50% ceiling applies to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and OBCs only. So if you are saying that breaking or breaching the ceiling of 50% would violate the basic structure of Constitution, that would happen only when the reservation to scheduled caste or scheduled tribe or OBCs are increased, then only it would violate the basic structure of Constitution. Now we would see what government is picking, which line government is picking. The new provisions dealt with the economically weaker section. The limit of 50% is only applicable to the reservation under Article 15.4, 15.5, 16.4 and does not apply to the Article 15.6. Let's try to see what this article says. So Article 15.4 says, nothing in this article or in clause 2 of Article 29, that is written here, shall prevent the state from making any special provision for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes. So this is what is OBC for you, or for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So if you are talking about 15.4, then actually 15.4 talks only about OBCs, SCs and STs. So this is what government is saying, that we have not touched it. So had we increased any quota there, then it would have violated the basic structure of Constitution. And similar is the case of 15.5, because it talks about reservation for OBCs, SCA and ST in educational institution. So basically whatever is the crux or the gist of 15.4 is the gist of 15.5. Now what 15.6 says is added to provide reservation to economically weaker section for admission to the educational institution, including private educational institution, whether aided or unaided by the state, other than the minority educational institution referred to in clause 1 of Article 30. The amendment aims to provide reservation to those who do not fall in 15.5 and 15.4. So that means wherever, see, Supreme Court has been striking down all the provisions of increasing the reservation quota for OBCs, SC, STs all across the country. Now government is saying that you have always enacted basic structure, brought in the concept of basic structure of Constitution, and in fact had said, talked about basic structure of constitution when first time OBC quota was brought in, and that time it was Supreme Court had said that in no case the reservation should exceed 50%, and that time the basic point was Article 15.4. So we have not touched Article 15.4. We have not touched any a party that is involved in 15.4, that is OBCs or SCs or STs. We are talking about the new segment, and that is economically weaker section. So they are altogether a new segment, and that is not covered in 15.4. Till date 15.4 has been the one or been into focus. That first time when reservation for OBCs came, this is what Supreme Court had said, that you cannot, this is agreed, but in no case the reservation should exceed 50%. So government is saying fine, we are not touching these three group, we are bringing in a new group. And then you yourself had said the attainment of economic equality is the final and only solution to the besetting problem. So this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to give them justice. So let's see how Supreme Court sees it. But this is quite an interesting argument, and this actually gives us perspective. So you must know, because we don't know what would happen till your mains comes. But whatever may be the result, you would be able to frame a good answer if you are aware about all kind of arguments. Now we move to the next article, to serve the governed. And this is written by Falias Nariman. So we would be finding some of a couple of good argument and quotes that you should remember, that would help you framing good quality answer. What he says: the Officer Secret Act has no place in democracy, as the Goswami Commission had suggested in late 70s. You should remember this. What is the past of the act? The constitutional freedom to use and publicize information is directly affected by the provisions of the Official Secret Act of 1923, which, as with most of the British India enactment, followed the Official Secret Act 1920 passed by the British Parliament. It was strict enough then, but after independence in free India, we amended it and made it stricter in 1967, widening the scope of section 5, which is related to wrongful communication of information, and enlarging the scope of section 8, that is duty of giving information to the commission of officers, that is related, of the rank of inspector and above, till superintendent of police. Now what does section 5 says? Section 5 talks about willfully communicates the code, the password, sketch, plan, model, article, notes, documents, or information to any person other than the person whom he is authorized to, or use the information in his possession for the benefit of any foreign power or in any other manner prejudicial to the safety of the state. And this is what has repeatedly been brought into action time and again. Mostly all these news reporters have always faced the wrath of this particular section. Now what is this act all about? Now that we have been talking about Official Secret Act, what is this? The law applicable to the government servant and citizen, and provide the framework for dealing with the espionage, sedition, and other potential threat to the integrity of the nation. The law makes spying, sharing secret information, unauthorized use of uniform, withholding information, interference with armed forces in prohibited or restricted areas, among others, as punishable offense. If guilty, a person may get up to 14 years of imprisonment, a fine, or both. The information could be any reference to a place belonging to or occupied by the government, documents, photographs, sketch, map, plans, model, official codes, or password. So everything is covered here. Now, has the law undergone any change over the years? Well, no. However, the Second Administrative Reform Commission, or SARC, report in 2006 had suggested that the act should be substituted by a chapter in National Security Act that incorporates the necessary provision. And what is the reason? This is quite a valid one. The reason is it has become a contentious issue after the implementation of Right to Information Act. So at one hand you're talking about sharing information with public, and on the other hand you're saying that the information cannot be shared. So it becomes paradox. Now, Official Secret Act does not define secret or official secret. And because of this, it actually gives a tool in the hand of officials. How? Public servant could very well deny any information terming as secret when asked under the RTI Act. And there has been numerous cases in Information Commission and has gone to the level of Chief Information Commissioner and to the Supreme Court, and many changes has been incorporated and directive has been issued to make system more transparent. Otherwise, initially, almost every information used to be termed as secret or something which cannot be shared. The SARC report states that as the Official Secret Act background is of the colonial climate of mistrust of the people and primacy of the public official in dealing with the citizen, it creates a culture of secrecy. This is quite an important point. You should remember this. That why should this go? Because it was formed with the formed in colonial climate with the mindset of mistrust on people, and it was primarily devised to help public official in dealing with the citizen only. And now we have a government by the citizen, so this should go. This is quite a good line. So confidentiality becomes a norm and disclosure becomes an exception in this situation. So this part is quite interesting. You should note it down. It says this tendency was challenged when the Right to Information Act came into existence. So earlier, what was the norm? Confidentiality. So everything is confidential, and only in exceptional situation something would be disclosed. Now in 2008, during the first term of the UPA, the group of ministers that scrutinized the SARC report refused to repeal the act, but suggested amendment to do away with the ambiguities. Even I'm going to go discuss on Rahul Gandhi's dialogue. In 2015, the India government formed a high-level panel to look into the provisions of the Official Secret Act in the light of RTI. No action has been taken on the panel report, which was submitted in 2017. Now, is withholding information the only issue with the Act? Now, other contentious issue with the law is the Section 5, which deals with the potential breach of national security, and it has often been misinterpreted. The section makes it a punishable offense to share information that may help an enemy state. The section comes in handy for booking journalists when they publicize information that may cause embarrassment to the government or the armed forces. There are 3 cases here, quite an interesting one. This one, Kashmir-based journalist Iftikhar Gilani was arrested in 2002 under OSA for downloading a document from the internet. So that means it was in public domain. And after spending 7 months in jail, he was honorably discharged by the court. Now, in the case pertaining to the journalist Santanu Saikia, who wrote an article in Financial Express on the basis of leaked cabinet note, the Delhi High Court in 2009 ruled that the publishing a document merely labeled as secret shall not render the journalist liable under Official Secret Act. Now, whatever has been published in the Hindu related to Rafale would definitely make a reference to this particular case. Now, what is the crux of the article? Falias Nariman says, since I still regard the press, not electronic media, as the champion of the Article 19(1)(a), that is related to freedom of expression, I would like to say that press must serve the governed and not those who govern. This is also quite an interesting line. Press must serve the governed, that is the citizen of the country, and should not those who govern, that is the government. So it basically this line says that the responsibility, the press is liable for answering to the citizen, not to the government, and that press must understand. Then there is a famous quote also. In his famous Gettysburg Address, Abraham Lincoln described good governance as, we all know, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, what Falias Nariman is saying, that centuries later, we do understand the of and are willing to tolerate the by. That means now we are realizing that government is, I mean, what is government? Government is what the citizen wants, and that's why he's saying that now we are realizing what is off. That means now citizen is understanding its power. Then that's why, we have got Right to Information Act. And then he's saying still citizen is willing to tolerate by, that means the government. Why it's saying it is willing to tolerate by? Because we still do not have the provision of right to recall the government. There has been debate. I mean, you all must have read that why shouldn't we have a provision in our constitution for right to recall, that government is not performing as per our wish, so the government should be scrapped and it should be recalled. So there should be an election for that. So that's why he's saying that we are willing to tolerate by, because that means we still do not have that control over the government, because once the mandate is given, it is given for 5 years. But unfortunately, what he says, we keep forgetting the for. That means we understand our right, we select our government, but we still have not been forcing government to work the way we want. That means we forget that the government is for the people. That means it is the responsibility of the government to inform the masses or the public what it is doing on and how it is performing. So that means it is the responsibility of the government to inform the citizen about its progress. So that means all the information that is with the government should be with the public, and if it cannot be divulged, then there should be a proper reasoning for that. So here he says, if government is indeed for the people, it has a solemn obligation to keep the people informed. This particular para is also quite an important one, interesting, and it would make your answer quite a good one. Fortunately, the modern trend in today's world is towards less secrecy and more information. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights (ICCPR), adopted by the General Assembly of United Nations, was way back in 1966, specifically included the right to freedom of expression, defined as the freedom to seek, receive, and impart the information and ideas of all kind. So what he's saying is basically, we also should be doing this, because availability of information is the key, and that should be with the public. So India should be taking this information. So quite an enriching article, I must say. You must note it down. In case you have got the newspaper, you must keep this in your notebook. Now the next article, final shutdown. And what is this all about? The IS is facing defeat, but the search for the political solution in Syria should continue. Let's first understand what is the ground reality at Syria. The Islamic State, which at its peak controlled the territories straddling the Iraq-Syria border of the size of Great Britain, is now fighting for half a square kilometer in eastern Syria. The Syrian Democratic Forces, the Kurdish-led rebel group, so there are two parties, Syrian Democratic Forces, Kurdish-led rebel group, assisted by the US, so third party, has effectively laid siege to Baghouz, the eastern Syrian village where about 500 IS jihadis along with the 4,000 women and children are caught. So basically, they have been able to free Syria from ISIS grip. Now, both President Donald Trump and the SDF commanders, Syrian Democratic Forces commanders, say that the victory against IS is imminent. Now, victory in Baghouz will also mean the IS's territorial caliphate is shattered. But is it the end of the war? Have we achieved the victory? Well, no. The liberation of Baghauz or the destruction of territorial caliphate does not necessarily mean that the IS has been defeated. Why? It is basically this point needs to be remembered. It is basically an insurgent jihadi group. So what happened to all those forces? Like more than a lakh people. They had a force of more than a lakh people. Where have they gone? Have they disappeared? So these groups are basically cell-based group. They must have dispersed, and they would keep on following the idea, because people from all across the world had gone to join this Islamic terrorist group. So they must have dispersed. They would keep on attacking, and they would keep on trying to regroup in Syria until unless some stable political solution is brought into Syria. Now it has established cell, and especially in Syria and Iraq, which have continued to carry out terror attacks even as the IS territories kept shrinking. This is what the editor says. Now we need to understand, this is important because this particular map would be important for us. This is Baghauz, eastern part of the Syria, and this is the Kurdish part, which actually Kurdish dominated area, which is in Syria, Iraq, Iran, Armenia and Turkey. And why it is important? Because we have got Kurdish led rebel group who also participated in ousting ISIS. So we had Syrian Democratic Forces and Kurdish led rebel group also. So that's why it is important for us to understand which is the Kurdish dominated area. Now let's try to understand what the editor says. The group has a presence in Syria's vast desert, a tactic its predecessor Al-Qaeda in Iraq successfully used when it was in decline during 2006 to 11 after its leader Abu Musab al-Zarqawi was killed by the US. So basically what the author is saying, that this particular group, the ISIS group, might follow the tactics its predecessor, that is Al-Qaeda of Iraq, had followed. What they did when their decline started happening, they spread itself into the vast desert of Iraq. So they also might do, because Syria also has got vast desert. Now when the Syrian civil war broke, the remnant of Al-Qaeda of Iraq found an opportunity for revival and rebranded themselves as Jabhat al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda's branch in Syria. So we will come to ISIS now. Now earlier there was AQI, and when it declined in between 2006 to 2011 in Iraq, they spread themselves in Iraqian desert. Now when there was resurgence when civil war broke in Syria, what they named themselves? Jamaat al-Nusra. Now this ISIS is nothing but a part of Jamaat al-Nusra. The IS was born when al-Nusra split. So basically whatever has been the philosophy and the system of Al-Qaeda of Iraq would be the policy and the tactics followed by this ISIS group. So these Americans and the Syrians and the Kurdish forces must take a note of this. The US and the Kurdish rebel, the Syrian government and other stakeholders in the region should be mindful of the geopolitical and sectarian minefield that groups such as the IS could exploit for their re-emergence. Now what is the tough road ahead? And that's why I had kept this Kurdish area map. US has already announced the withdrawal of US troops from Syria. Turkish government is wary of the rapid rise of the Syrian Kurds, who are organizationally and ideologically aligned with the Kurdish rebel on the Turkish side. So we have got Kurdish rebel in Turkey also, and Turkish government is quite wary of the rapid rise of Syrian Kurds. So we have got Kurdish zone here, and Turkey government is quite worried about the rise of Kurdish people in Syria, because it also has got a vast majority of Kurdish people, and these Kurdish rebel had actually tried to suppress ISIS forces. So if these people, there is a resurgence of these rebel, it will create a problem for Turkey. and so definitely Turkish government is would try to suppress them. Now Syrian regime on its part has vowed to re-establish an authority over Kurdish autonomous region in the northeastern zone. So that means at least Turkey is also interested in suppressing Kurdish people. Syria is also interested in suppressing Kurdish people. Now if Turkey and Syria attack Kurdish rebel who were the vital in the battle against ISIS, that would throw northeastern Syria into a chaos again. This particular part, which actually would suit jihadis. Now where have these jihadis gone? What the author is saying that these jihadis have gone into vast desert, might have gone into vast desert. Because why? Because this is what their predecessor Al Qaeda of Iraq had done. They had after their decline, they had gone into the vast desert of Iraq. So they also might have gone. So the moment that northeastern part become unstable, or Turkey and Syrian government start working against Kurdish rebels or Kurdish people, these jihadists would find an opportunity. And since they are around only, they have not gone anywhere. Since they are around, they would try to re-establish themselves. So what is the solution? To avoid this, there must be an orderly US withdrawal and a political solution to the Syrian civil war. That means indirectly what editor is saying, that Kurdish people should not brutally be suppressed. They are rebel and they have helped ousting of ISIS. So they also should be included in the political solution, not only in Syria but also in Turkey also. Now, in the last article we have infographic related to generalized system of preference, that is called GSP. It actually talks about which kind of product is getting exported to America, what are their share, and how India's share has increased. So in 2009 India was somewhere here. In 2018 it is at $45 billion. The biggest beneficiary is pearl and precious gemstone sector, and then it is medicaments. And then we have petroleum and oil, jewelry and goldsmith, which is $30 billion. And at 20, and then these are detailed here. The seventh number is apparel and textile, which is about 16.42 billion. At 25th number we have women's apparel, which is about knitted, basically 4.12 billion. At 12 number we have parts for tractor motor cars, that is about 10 billion. So this is the detail about the complete export of India to America. So this is good information for you to have. Question might not be asked directly, but you can use this data for framing your own answer in case question is asked related to GSP and what could be the impact of GSP on Indian sector. So in case you are asked about question related to automobile sector or any other sector, you can quote data from this part and say how exactly things are going to shape up. So this is all I had for today. Thank you very much.